They left me to die. I still remember their voices crackling through the intercom, cold and official. Experiment 47, terminated. All logs archived, proceeding to warp. That was the last thing I heard before the silence swallowed me whole. Had been part of a diplomatic research team sent by the Virilan Council, a group of self-declared enlightened species who saw humans as nothing more than lab rats with aggression problems. I was the sole human on the crew, brought in as a biological study subject, under the fake name of cultural liaison. In reality, I was a pet, dressed in a uniform, smiled at in public, and discussed like bacteria in private. But I kept quiet. I watched. I waited. That mission was supposed to be a peaceful observational tour of the Kelevon Nebula, an area known for its uncharted anomalies and rumored psychic storms. But the ship ran into something far worse. Something ancient. A dormant energy field, like a net hanging invisible in space, and once we entered, it swallowed us whole. Systems fried. Communication collapsed. And just like that, the mighty interstellar cruiser, the Illyran Dawn, was reduced to a floating husk. The crew panicked, but not because of the anomaly, because they feared me. When things went bad, they needed a scapegoat. I heard one of them say the human brought something with him. Another whispered, his brain patterns don't align, he triggered it. And within 2 standard hours, I was locked in a supply pod and ejected. I remember spinning, watching the stars blur, feeling the pod jolt and die into silence. Days passed, maybe weeks. The emergency rations ran out on day 11. Water by day 16. By day 20, the recycled air had gone foul. I was just a sack of bones floating in a coffin, waiting to die, haunted by the echo of those cold alien voices. But then, a sound. A low vibration hummed through the pod walls, not natural, not part of the ship's failing systems. A signal, a beacon. And then I heard it, a voice. Familiar, guttural, raw. Unidentified craft. This is the Terran recovery ship Juno's Hammer. Do you read? I thought I was hallucinating. The name alone, Juno's Hammer, sounded like thunder to my ears. Earthships were rare this far out. Humanity wasn't even supposed to be in this quadrant. They told us we weren't ready, that our tech was too primitive, that we should stay within our little solar leash. And yet, here they were. Repeat, the voice said again, firmer this time, more human. If you're alive in there, respond, I coughed. My throat was cracked, bloody, my fingers barely worked. I slapped the comms panel like a dying animal. Here, I wheezed. Human! Alive! I blacked out before I could say more. When I woke up, I was staring at a ceiling lined with rivets and steel. Human architecture, no curves, no glowing. Blue vines or floating orbs, just hard, practical metal. The kind that said, we build things to survive. I could smell grease, hear boots walking, laughter, human laughter. A woman leaned over me, short red hair, deep scar across her left cheek. No nonsense in her eyes. Well, hell, she said, you weren't kidding, you are a damn human. I nodded slowly. My eyes filled. I hadn't cried once when they left me to die, but I cried. Then they fed me, hooked me to drips, let me speak when I could. The captain introduced herself later, Saria Vega, a former Earth Fleet commander turned rogue operator. She didn't work for governments anymore. Too many rules, she said. Too many bastards making decisions from orbit. When I told her what happened, how I was ejected, how they blamed me, her face went cold. Virelans, she muttered. Arrogant bastards, always preaching peace while stabbing you in the back. I nodded. They never planned to bring me home. I was just data to them. She leaned back, eyes narrowing. Not anymore. You're home now, and they're going to wish they'd left you alone. And that was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just rescued. I was about to become the one thing the Virilan Council feared the most, a human with nothing left to lose. They didn't understand what they had done. The Virilans thought they could throw me away like broken equipment, like trash drifting into nothingness, but they had no idea what humans become when cornered, when betrayed. They never studied that part. Captain Saria Vega watched me closely in the days that followed. I could feel the eyes of her crew on me. Engineers, medics, gunners. These weren't polished, clean-uniformed Earth Fleet officers. They were rough, sharp, and real. They had scars like mine, burns, stories behind every twitch and stare, survivors, fighters. You know, Vega said one morning, sipping coffee in the mess. We almost didn't stop. That distress pod was so ancient, most scanners flagged. It as wreckage. Why did you? I asked. She stared into her mug like it held secrets. Instinct. Something about the signal felt human. And we don't leave our own behind. Not anymore. I wanted to believe it. I really did. But the galaxy had taught me otherwise. They left you to die, she added, her voice tightening, and then they warped out like cowards. I nodded slowly. They called me Experiment 47. Jesus, she muttered. What the hell did they do to you? I hesitated. Tests, neural pattern tracking, stress response simulations. They said it was for diplomacy studies. They lied. I was the only human in the crew. The rest were all Virellan, Aluthari, Kyrex. They wore robes, smiled all the time, preached unity. But the moment something went wrong, I was the alien. Vega clenched her jaw. That's how they are, advanced races, sure, but they still piss themselves when someone punches back. Her eyes locked on mine. You want revenge? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That night she brought me to the Juno's Hammer war room, a space lit in harsh red glow lined with flickering screens and hand-drawn maps of the outer rim. A massive hologram showed the ship routes of nearby sectors. She pointed to a blinking dot. That's the Elleran Dawn, your ship. Orbiting a gas giant in Sector 94X, we tracked it based on the last warp residue. Looks like they're repairing. Vulnerable. I stared at it for a long time, my breathing slowed. I want to see their faces when they realize I survived. You'll get your chance, she said, but not as some victim floating in a pod. You're one of us now. From that day I became crew. I trained in the underdeck with ex-Earth Marines who taught me how to fight dirty. Knife between the ribs, quiet kills, pressure points. I learned to shoot, to hack surveillance nodes, to tear apart alien tech and rewire it for sabotage. We ran missions across the rim, stealing supplies, freeing prisoners, planting false codes in council ships. Everywhere we went, whispers followed. There's a human ship out there, led by ghosts, rescuing the abandoned, avenging the forgotten. The name they gave me was strange at first. The Driftborn, a man who came back from the dead. By the 4th month, Vega gathered the whole crew in the main deck. Dozens of us, some human, some not, all loyal to her cause. It's time, she said. The Elleran Dawn is within range. We drop in fast, cripple their engines, breach the hull, and take what's ours, including the data logs about what they did to you. She turned to me. And then, if you want, you can look those bastards in the eyes before we burn their ship. I didn't speak. I didn't smile, but inside me something awakened. Not rage, not hate. Clarity. We launched at 0 hour. Space cracked with the sound of burning engines. Our stealth hull shimmered past sensors. We dropped in like a silent blade into soft flesh. The Juno's hammer tore through the void and latched onto the Elleran Dawn's side before they could react. We breached the hull in silence. Guns drawn. Blades ready. I led the charge. And when I stepped into that silver-lit corridor again, the same one they'd marched me through to die, I felt no fear, only justice. The moment my boots hit the deck of the Elleran Dawn, something inside me went quiet, like a part of my soul was holding its breath. The lights flickered above us, alarms already howling through the corridors. The Virellans never expected a direct assault, especially not from humans, especially not from me. They'd moved on, left me as a number in a file, a closed experiment. But the thing about humans is, we remember, we return. I moved through the familiar halls like a ghost retracing its murder scene. The layout was burned into my memory. How could I forget? The cold lab rooms, the med bays where they tested my pain limits, the observation decks where they sat like gods behind glass. We split into 3 squads. Saria Vega's crew were professionals, silent and fast, taking control of every deck with brutal efficiency. The goal wasn't to destroy the ship, not yet. The goal was control, and for me there was only one objective: Dr. Selith Murnan, lead scientist, Virellan Elder, the one who ordered me ejected. "Deck 5, whispered Vega, in my earpiece. "We're feeding you directions now. He's in the biocore, running simulations, still thinks he's untouchable." "Not for long," I said, voice cold and low. I passed through the memory of my own suffering, the hallway where I had begged to explain myself, the very chamber where 2 guards shoved me into the pod and closed the hatch while I screamed through glass. It was all still here, untouched, as if nothing had happened, as if I had meant nothing. That silence inside me cracked. I pressed forward. At the entrance to the biocore, 2 Virellan guards stood tense, weapons drawn, their faces tightened, in confusion when they saw me, then horror. They hesitated for half a second. That was enough. 2 shots, 1 to each throat, quiet, clean. I stepped through the door. There he was, Dr. Selith Murnan, sitting behind his console, surrounded by shimmering light fields and softly pulsing alien tech. His robe was still white, spotless. His long violet fingers hovered in hesitation above a touchpad. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, disbelieving. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. I took another step forward, pistol lowered but steady. "You left me to die," I replied. "It was a protocol decision. The ship was compromised. You were unstable. A threat." I laughed. Just once. Sharp and broken. "A threat? I saved your crew. It was my fix that stabilized the reactor when your experts were too scared to touch it. And you repaid me by blaming me, by tossing me into space like a malfunctioning drone." He stood now, tall, elegant, still trying to reclaim his sense of control. "We believed your emotional instability triggered the anomaly. The logs—" "I've read the logs," I snapped, "and you erased everything I did right. All you kept was what could damn me." I raised the pistol. His eyes locked on mine. "You can't do this," he whispered. "You're supposed to be better. You're human." I stepped closer, until the barrel nearly touched his forehead. "You're right," I said. "I am human, and we're done begging." The gun fired once. His body collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. It wasn't rage, it wasn't pleasure. It was peace. In the minutes that followed, Vega's voice came through again. "Bridge secured. Engines offline. Uploading all experiment logs, ready to burn the whole thing if you want." "No," I said, walking calmly out of the biocore. "We're not burning anything." She paused. "What do you mean?" "We send it all. The logs, the footage, the voice recordings, everything. To every race, every council, every newsnet. Let them see what these peaceful Virellans really are. And then we let them crawl under the weight of their own lies." There was a pause. Then her voice returned, sharp with approval. "Copy that, uploading now." We left the Elleran Dawn in silence. It drifted behind us like a carcass in the void, a symbol of everything they tried to hide. By the next cycle, the galaxy would know that a human, just one, could come back from the dead and rewrite everything. They say information is power. And when the truth hit the network grids across the outer rim and inner systems, it was like a virus, spreading faster than light, impossible to erase. Every file from the Elleran Dawn, every test, every conversation, every mention of Experiment 47. Me. It all went public. The Virellan Council denied everything at first, called it fabrication, human propaganda. But it was too late. We had footage of them discussing containment solutions if the subject, me, became volatile. We had medical logs showing induced trauma, emotional stress triggers, and psychological torture disguised as study. Worst of all, we had their own words. "He's just a human, replaceable." That line alone broke the damn galaxy. The humans back in Sol system were the first to respond. For decades, Earth had bowed its head. In galactic politics, labeled a developing species under the Council's patronizing oversight. But this was different. This was betrayal. This was war without bullets, Earth withdrew from every Varellan agreement in 36 hours. The Terran Confederation issued a formal warrant for the arrest of every scientist involved in Project 47. Sanctions followed, embargoes. Even non-human allies like the Torvani and the Resek, a reptilian race usually aligned with the Virelans, started questioning their treaties. And as the galaxy churned in confusion and chaos, we kept flying. The Juno's hammer became more than a rogue ship. We were now a symbol. The Driftborn had returned, and the Forgotten weren't forgotten anymore. That's when the message came through, encrypted, short, one line only. They're hunting you, fleet mobilizing, coordinates attached. We traced it. Origin point, a hidden Terran outpost near the edge of neutral space. Whoever sent it knew what was coming before we did. They're sending a kill team, Vega said, standing over the war table, arms crossed tight. Not just soldiers, assassins, Virellan specters, silent ships, mind hackers, shadow killers. Let them come, I said. She glanced at me sideways. You've changed. I had to, but she shook her head. No, I mean, you've really changed. And then she slid a data pad across the table. Medical scan. Mine. Your body's been adapting since the experiments. Neural growth, muscle fiber density, enhanced memory, even pattern recognition. They broke you open and something inside you grew in the cracks. I stared at it. The scans were impossible. Superhuman, almost. They wanted to study the human. Mind under pressure, she said. But they didn't realize what pressure does to us. It evolves us. I didn't know whether to feel horror or awe. What now? I asked. She leaned in, fire in her voice. Now, we don't just survive, we fight back. The kill team arrived 3 days later. We saw their ship, a sleek obsidian spear, silent on radar, absorbing light like a black hole. No comms, no warning. Just straight to assault. But this time we were ready. The ship hit us with EMP bursts, nanite clouds, mind wave dissonance meant to break thought patterns. It would have crippled most crews, but Vega had prepared. We'd reinforced the hull with human tech, analog backups, neural dampeners, things the Virelans dismissed as primitive. When they boarded, they expected confusion. Fear. What they found were armed humans in full battle suits grinning like wolves. I led the charge. No helmet. No fear. And when their commander, a towering silver-skinned spectre with black-veined arms, tried to push into my mind, I pushed back. He staggered. Blood ran from his nose. "You're not supposed to be this strong," he gasped. I grabbed him by the throat. "That's because I'm not supposed to be alive." And I snapped his neck. The rest of the team fell in minutes. No survivors. We spaced their ship and left the wreck drifting in the same silence they once tried to bury me in. When it was over, I sat alone in my quarters, staring at the stars. Vega came in quietly, a fresh burn along her jaw. "We just made the galaxy choose sides," she said. I didn't answer. I was already thinking ahead. About who else they abandoned, who else the Council silenced, because this war wasn't just about me anymore, it was about all of us. The stars had never looked more silent. After the Spectres failed to kill me, the Virellan Council went dark. No broadcasts, no diplomatic chatter, just silence. Like a predator retreating into the jungle, not out of fear, but strategy. They weren't going to fight openly. That wasn't their way. No, they were going to bury us in whispers, in manipulation, in quiet extermination. But they had already made their biggest mistake. They made me a symbol, and symbols are hard to kill. I stood in front of the Juno's hammer crew for the last time that cycle. Every face turned toward me. Humans, half-bloods, outcasts, defectors, even a few non-human sympathizers who'd burned their bridges just to stand on this deck. I was thrown into space, I told them, forgotten, labeled dangerous, and left to rot. They listened in dead silence, but they were right about one thing: I am dangerous, not because I'm violent, not because I'm human, but because I remember, and I make damn sure others do too. Vega stood at my side. For once, she didn't speak, just nodded. We've exposed the truth, but the truth isn't enough. There are others still being used, tested, held in secret rooms on quiet moons, treated like numbers in another damn file. We either let that continue, or we do something no one else has the guts to. I stepped back and activated the holomap. Dozens of red blips lit up across the galaxy. These are the black sites, hidden by Viralan encryption, found by Earth's new allies and decrypted by people who finally give a damn. The crew stirred. Some cursed. Some clenched their fists. "We're not a crew anymore," I said. "We're a movement." And then we began. We struck without mercy. One by one, we hit the sites. Cryo-prisons on asteroid belts. Genetic labs buried in the crust of dead planets. Neural reprogramming centers disguised as embassies. And every time we didn't just free prisoners, we uploaded the files, broadcast everything, let the galaxy watch. And they did. Billions tuned in. Billions saw what the Peaceful Council had really done. What they'd hidden for centuries behind polished robes and shimmering ships. Species that once praised the Viralans began tearing up their alliances. Some took up arms, others gave us shelter. A few even offered their own secrets to help our cause. And as the cracks deepened in the Council, Earth finally stood tall, no longer begging for recognition, now commanding it. The final blow came on a cold moon in Sector 7 Delta, where the Council had buried its deepest sins, a vault containing every experiment log, every order of silence, every operation tied to species manipulation, including the project that created me. The defense was thick: drone armies, Virelian warships, psychic barriers. But they never planned for a human army to storm their gates. We breached it. Not because we were stronger, but because we had something they never understood. We were angry. Inside that vault, I found the original footage, the day they signed off my death. There I was, younger, dazed, sitting in a chair with wires in my arms, and there they were, calmly deciding to end me over tea and protocol. I downloaded it all, and before we left, I stood in the central chamber and broadcast my final message. I was Experiment 47. They tried to erase me. They failed. Now the galaxy sees them for what they are, and if they think this ends with me, they haven't been paying attention. I looked into the camera, not smiling, just calm. This is for everyone they tried to forget. Then we planted charges and walked out. The vault exploded behind us, fire and data lighting up the sky. Back on the Juno's hammer, I stood on the bridge while Saria Vega handed me the controls. Where to now, Driftborn? I looked at the stars, at the system still enslaved by old power, the colonies forgotten by peace, the prisoners who still waited in the dark, and I answered with the only word that mattered: forward. Because humanity doesn't stop, not when we're angry, not when we're broken, and never, never when we remember what was done to us.